if I'm in a state of againstness, then I can't really deploy the energy that I need to actually be of service to change that. So there's, in my mind, there is a level of acceptance of what is.
Welcome to Radically Loved Radio. I am your host, Rosie Acosta, yoga teacher and teacher trainer, mindfulness coach, speaker, and creative writer. I am also the founder of radicallylove.com, a website where you can go for more information about yoga, mindfulness, meditation, and lifestyle advice. On this podcast, we talk to people within our health and wellness community that are creating content through the ritualistic practice of yoga, meditation, or overall mindful living. We hope to create value in your life so that you can achieve your highest potential and live a radically loved life. To stay in touch with us, just follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Rosie Acosta and on Facebook at Radically Loved Rosie. You can sign up for our newsletter on radicallylove.com to stay up to date on future workshops, retreats, and latest podcasts. I hope that Radically Loved Radio leaves you feeling inspired to create something powerful. My teacher, Yoga Rupa Rod Stryker, says, if you powerfully believe in the value you have to offer the world, your love and passion for it will be an unstoppable force. Thanks for listening. Hey guys, most of you know that I have returned back to a plant-based diet, so my beverage consumption has increased quite a bit. Don't judge. I know there's some of you out there that really enjoy beverages. So one of my favorite things to drink lately, which I'm consuming a lot of, is Four Sigmatic's new Golden Latte Mushroom Mix. It has shiitake and turmeric in it. It's totally organic, caffeine-free, vegan, and only 1 gram of palm sugar per serving. I love being able to travel with these little packets because they're really easy to make. All you need is some hot water. Some of the additional ingredients in the Golden Latte are adaptogenic tulsi, warming ginger, and a pinch of black pepper to support turmeric's skin-loving properties. So not only do your insides feel amazing, but your skin looks great. Go to Four Sigmatic now and enter promo code RADICALLYLOVED, that's RADICALLYLOVED, to get 15% off of your entire purchase. Be sure to check out all the other products that they have there as well. Okay, I'm excited. I'm always excited, but like today I'm extra excited.
Yay. You are talking to me and you're plugged into Aspen, Colorado, which is like just so freaking awesome.
I know. It's so bizarre, but so incredible that we're able to connect. It's just bizarre. I don't know. And I can hear you like you're right next to me.
I know we have a good connection. I'm kind of excited about that too. I have like these crazy earphones on that are like blocking out everything else. So it's like you're in my head big time.
Oh my goodness. Perfect. It's scary, but it's good at the same time. Hey everyone. Welcome to another episode of Radically Loved. I'm here with Gina Murdock today. Gina's a writer, a yoga teacher, and a community organizer. She's the founder of the Aspen Yoga Society, the Aspen City of Wellbeing, Lead with Love retreats, the Love Ninjas, and the Mind Body Spirit RX content brand. Gina and her husband Jerry created and support the Mind Body Spirit series at the Aspen Institute, hosting speakers and events to raise consciousness, which is absolutely incredible. And I know that Rod, who's our teacher, is Rod your teacher?
Rod's my teacher.
Okay.
Man.
That's what I figured. But I learned about your organization through him, and he had spoken about it before, and I had actually listened to a couple of recordings of his for events that I had no idea that you did. And I'm like, now this all makes sense, you know? So welcome. Hi.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say Rod Stryker is one of those amazing teachers, I think, as you know, but just an advocate and a cheerleader. Like when he told me about you, it was just like, I mean, you're the most incredible person on the planet. And then I met you and I was like, well, yeah, she is. So I love that quality in a person and in especially a teacher, that they're just all about lifting people up and sharing their gifts and the things they love about that person. And when you get that kind of recommendation from someone like Rod, who I love and admire and really respect, kind of a no-brainer that we would connect.
Yeah. And it's so interesting to me to have that connection, because I find that for me, and sometimes I'm like, somebody can talk somebody else up and then you meet them and sometimes it's not that way. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, yes. Or like when you meet somebody's partner that they really love and you're like, oh man, like, I don't know about this person, It's it's interesting to me because I'm always extremely optimistic, but what I find, the reason why I bring that up is especially in the para yoga community or in the yoga community, or especially Rod students, I feel like we all have this common thread, that there is that sort of reverence for the practice and for our community. And so I wasn't surprised at how awesome you were when we met. So
well, thank you. You know what? It's funny because I just was leading this yoga retreat yesterday in the beautiful mountains of Aspen, Colorado, where I live.
Yes.
And there was this group of women that had come together, and there was one woman who sort of initiated the whole thing. So they were all her friends, but they didn't all know each other. And by the end of the day, you know how a retreat goes. It's like in a day, you just drop into this beautiful deep space. And we were in nature and just so touched by the beauty of where we were. But this common thread kept coming out. Well, it's like, well, if you're a friend of Jackie's, then you're a friend of mine. And I've had that experience too, where you have this feeling like if you're a friend of his or you're a student of Rod and in this community, there's like this baseline of connection. And I think that's a really cool thing to experience. And I witnessed that yesterday with this group of women that just had this beautiful awareness of this thread of being connected through this one woman and her generous heart for always wanting to connect people, and the depth of like friendship that was formed with people that didn't even know each other in the beginning of the day by just that little pit. It's almost like the hub of a wheel. So yeah, I think we look for that in our lives. It's like we look for people that are gravitating toward these same things, and then we have this connection that elevates our own understanding of who we are by learning from other people.
Well, yeah, and I feel like this is so apropos to what you do and what you've created, right? I mean, this idea of connection and bringing awareness to health and wellness and the environment. And so I just want people to get to know a little bit more about you and what you do and sort of what created this wellness empire that you have created.
Well, I love that you called it an empire when I'm sitting in like this little closet space on this teeny computer with this microphone I just found in a box. It's the empire. No, it's real. It's real. And it's so funny because, I've created all these brands over the last like decade, starting with the Aspen Yoga Society in 2010. And it morphed into the Aspen City of Wellbeing project that I worked on for several years, which was all about creating a city of well-being and working with the city of Aspen. And then that morphed into Lead with Love, which is our current brand and nonprofit organization. And we host events all over the world. Mm-hmm. So in some ways, I think, especially from the outside, it's like, whoa, girl, you got a lot going on. But like reality, it's like we are like we work really, really hard, and often we cry, like we're stressed out and we're like running the city of well-being and we're like, this isn't how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But that is how it is. And it's like, we care so much and we're driven by passion and purpose and making an impact in the world. And, a lot of it really started for me. I became somewhat of an evangelist for yoga, over 10 years ago, after having a pretty severe concussion in a car accident up here in Aspen, some black ice in the winter.
Oh no.
And like one of those super dark times of like, I was a news reporter and working and doing all these different things. Like I couldn't work anymore. I was just in kind of a sad space. I didn't have any money to pay the bills of like going to get therapy and all that. And I decided to quit my job as a news reporter and go to, of all places, Bikram yoga teacher training and put the entire thing on my credit card, because at that time there was no other kind of yoga in this valley. That was the only one here. And it's the only one type of yoga I knew, that like super militant 26 postures, 2 breathing exercises. I thought that was yoga. Like, right. I'm like, okay, that's it. And I went for 9 weeks to Hawaii and had a fairly extraordinary and weird experience, as probably most people have heard, Bikram is a challenged soul, and he's also kind of the gateway drug, I think, for a lot of people getting into yoga. At least he was before he's like running from the law. But yeah, I got into yoga, and it was the one thing that made me feel like myself again. And so therefore I got really passionate about sharing the practice. And I would say that was the seed that was planted that got me into teaching, and then, inventing all these organizations that were about what I thought was the core of yoga, which is this idea of union and also seva, selfless service. So that has really kind of been the thing that has fueled the fire for me to start these different organizations and want to share it.
Yeah, I love how you were able to bridge those two together. What was there an actual moment where you realized that there was something more than just the physical postures? Was there a specific moment where you felt that, or something happened?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to talk about that, because I grew up in a household where through no fault of my parents, they had a real traumatic loss. They lost a child when she was 5 years old from brain cancer before I was born. And I was named after her. And there's all this stuff there. She's an amazing little spirit. But my parents were Catholic. And at that time, they had prayed so much and so deeply to God to help them. They were watching their little baby slip away. And of course I wasn't around then, but it's like, I know this story, like it's in my blood, in my heart. And after that, they, and especially my dad, really turned away from religion and God and just said that there's no God that would let that happen. And he didn't have a relationship with God or spirit. And my mom, I think, kind of secretly did, like she's much more spiritual, but it didn't come out. As a child, I never really had an experience of any kind of religion, or any kind of spiritual practices. And I sort of adopted this cynical view about God and in particular religion. And I share that because it's like, I didn't realize how calcified that was in my heart and my brain, that like, you're in this is just you out there. There's nothing else to rely on. And I got inspired by nature, and I found a lot of happiness and kind of reverence for, maybe I could consider that my spiritual connection through nature and just being in awe of the natural beauty. But not too long ago, I went into a program at the University of Santa Monica, and it was a master's program in spiritual psychology with Dr. Ron and Mary Hulnick down there in your neck of the woods. And through that program in 3 years, and it was not too long ago, just 3 years ago, I created and can maintain this amazing connection with spirit, where I could say that I am connected to God and to spirit and to the universe in such an authentic and heartfelt way that it's just kind of sinking in still to this moment, my connection with something more than, for one, the physical practice of yoga. Even before the school, I mean, when I started meditating and getting into the quiet space with the yoga practice, I, of course, would feel like the expansiveness and the lightness of being that's in that space. But I didn't know what it was, and I didn't have a relationship with it really until I learned a language around it through that program that helped me connect the dots. So those two things together, spiritual psychology and yoga, have created in me what I would say is the most important aspect of my life, which is that connection with something bigger, deeper, higher, whatever you name it, God, spirit, universe, love. And it's kind of the basis of Lead with Love, really, is we don't totally lead with that because we want to attract people from all over and business people and this and that. But it's like, for me, it's all of it.
Yeah, but don't you think that this is what's really missing right now? It's this idea that all entrepreneurs alike, with spiritual aspirants, I think that we all need to be in that frequency of leading with our heart, as opposed to, the scarcity mindset, or to have a lack mentality. We forget that the universe is abundant, and we can achieve a deeper connection to something bigger than ourselves. Don't you? I mean, obviously you agree, right?
Obviously. Well, I mean, hell yeah, I agree. And it's like the vision that we hold. And yet it's like, when I heard you say that, like, don't you think that's what we need? It's like, I think from the spiritual perspective, and this was where it gets a little tricky. It's like you or I or any of us aren't really to say what we need. It's like, it seems so obvious. Like, yes, we need heart-centered leadership. We need more meaning and purpose in our lives. We need more, deeper connections. We have a suicide rate here in Aspen where I live that's 3 times the national average. And it's just mirroring what's happening all over the world. I mean, people are killing themselves like at a rate it's actually 1 per 40 seconds. So we could sit here for 40 seconds and go 1, 2. And it's devastating because there's so much suffering. And yet from the spiritual perspective, and I hope this doesn't sound really callous, it's like there is a reason and a meaning for this, and that we are all in our individual journey of learning and growing at whatever pace we're at. I mean, Donald Trump is our president. And so I think that that's a mirror for us to look at ourselves and see where we're at kind of in that collective consciousness as a whole. And then even within ourselves, those of us who practice yoga, we drink green juice and all the yummy stuff. It's like we are fucked up. Like we're hypocritical, I think, in a big way, myself included. And we're delusional. Like we're delusional about what's really important. And sometimes I think people that aren't like on the spiritual path are way more spiritual, if you know what I mean. It's like all this lingo and all the malas and all of our sprays and all of our like stuff has created this like mask of like, who are you? And you're not even a nice person. Like, and the thoughts that are in your head are like toxic. The judgment that you're looking at each person and the competition within our industry of like, let's say health and wellness bloggers or podcast people or teachers. I mean, bringing each other down like big time. And so I really am so curious about the journey of just that constant reflection of how can I shift myself into a space of truth and authenticity. And it is through the practice. And I just have to say, I don't think I know what anybody else needs. Like I barely know what I need, but I do check in with my motivation and my intention. And I know it's pure. And sometimes it's not. Like I check in all the time to see like, are you doing this because you need attention, or do you need to feel loved, or, these kind of lower level things. It's like, I really want to be of service, and that's my highest intention. But sometimes through conditioning and different things, other stuff is leading. And if I don't sit and, contemplate and reflect, it's so easy to slip into that pattern of being righteous. And my friend mentioned this term the other day called spiritual narcissism. Ooh. And I was like, okay, I'm going to look at that. Like you take a bunch of workshops and you get all enlightened. And then it's like, oh, let me tell you, what's important and what you need to know. I don't want to go there, but I sometimes feel that slippery slope. It kind of comes from a good place. It's like I'm so inspired by the practices and the feeling that I get from it that I want to share. But it's like that fine line of being an evangelist, and where's it coming from? Like, are you trying to change somebody? Do you feel like you know better than they do? So I don't know.
No, you do. But that's the thing. It's you do know, and that's sort of the thing that I feel like I couldn't agree with you anymore. I feel like instead of us telling people what they need, we have the disconnection of not listening to what they're going through and what their needs are, because it's sort of that same evangelical type of system where you find something that you really love that really works for you, and you want to convert everybody. You want to say, hey, this really works for me. I loved it, that yoga really changed my life, or drinking green juice really made me like feel so much healthier and better about myself. And it's like something we think is so innocuous could totally shake and shift the foundation of somebody else's belief system. And that can be extremely unsettling and threatening to people. And I feel like, especially where we are, I did the Live Be Yoga tour last year. So I don't know if we talked about this when I saw you a couple months ago, but I was on the road for like 8 months last year, and we visited like something like 30 cities and across from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. And what I found was I wanted to go through this process because I wanted to get to see the country. Like, you know, I grew up in a lower income, chaotic environment where, you know, we didn't do family vacations. We didn't travel anywhere. And so when I was old enough to like get myself out of that space and be able to travel, like I wanted to see the world. I wanted to explore and see the country. And so I was really excited to do that. And I was a little bit disappointed at the state of the world. You know, it was I mean, like we had such incredible experiences, but I was so just disappointed at the state of disconnection, you know, that we were just in this space where we, just as people, like we're losing that sense of connection and that sense of kindness and that sense of compassion. And not that we didn't experience really great people. I absolutely did. There was so many beautiful and great people everywhere. There are still good people in the world. But what I will say is that when I traveled and went to different cities that aren't big cities across the states, and I saw the reflection in our culture, in our society, I wasn't surprised.
Yeah, I think that I travel a lot internationally and I haven't been even to the middle of America. And I think that I would be really shocked, to be honest. And I think I'm more interested. I know I am, like if I go to Mexico or I go to Guatemala or I go to Europe, it's like I'm so interested in the culture and I want to be with the people there. And yet I'm not really interested in that culture of that area in my own country. And I just say that to name it, that like we are a very divided nation, obviously, in a very divided world, which is why yoga is such a beautiful tool. And I think we're seeing more and more people get into it on both sides of the aisle. There's plenty of, you know, very pro-Trump Republicans that are really into yoga and have a spiritual practice. So I have to be really careful because I have been really triggered by that this last couple of years. And yet that's a practice for me to look at, you know, my own judgment and my own righteousness about like what's right and what's wrong. And then try to see how can I be part of the solution to what's happening in our country and in our world, and not just get stuck in that constant cycle of bitching and finding like-minded people to bitch and, you know, or even like the activism that comes from anger. It's like you're adding more anger and rage into this system that doesn't need that. It needs loving. And so I think with Lead with Love, we have a beautiful opportunity to kind of build a community that is inspired by that says, okay, I'm going to take action. I'm not going to be apathetic and not vote and things like that. Yeah. But I'm going to do it in a way that comes from a loving place. And that is not easy. And it requires those daily practices and that, you know, radical sort of self-reflection and going like, where's this coming from? And to decode it and like really look into it so that we're not indulging ourselves in being judgmental and hateful and then preaching love. You know, It's like, wait a minute, you know, I find it very challenging.
Yeah. And I feel like building a community like this is super helpful, because then we can actually create an open space where people feel accepted. But I feel like it takes two people, just like being in a relationship, right? It's like two people have to be willing to compromise, to set their differences aside, or to agree or make a vow or a commitment to lead with love, or lead from a place of openness, or lead from a place of compassion, or lead from a place of kindness, in order to create more unification, as opposed to, well, I'm only going to be open enough for you to understand my point of view, and then we can move on. Right? Totally.
I mean, I really do think that people like Donald Trump thinks he's leading with love. Like he would probably put a bumper sticker on there, like I lead with love. And so I don't think we own that or can claim it and say, well, we're those like type of people that do that there's those other types that don't, that like do those bad things. Because I think people that do a lot of things that I don't agree with, that I don't, you know, resonate with, think that they're doing it for the right reason, or obviously, you know, people are always doing the best they can based on sort of the spiritual principles. And that's where you get into these sort of really difficult practices of acceptance in some ways of things that are horrifying. Let's say like sex slavery or something like rape and all the things that are out there, starvation. It's like, I don't agree with that. I don't like that. don't want that to be happening. But if I'm in a state of againstness, then I can't really deploy the energy that I need to actually be of service to change that. So there's, in my mind, there is a level of acceptance of what is, and just kind of not resignation even. It's just going, okay, this is what is, and then moving forward in a way that you feel like you can make a difference in a positive way.
Yeah.
And not dwelling on that. And I've tried to get a little bit more, I don't know, in some ways it feels like courageous, and just stopping these conversations that are really cyclical around bitching about what's wrong, because it is sometimes nice. It feels good.
Yeah. Well, and so here's the thing, you're a teacher. You also lead these retreats. I mean, you just led one, as you said, just last week, right?
Yes, yesterday.
Just yesterday. Oh, geez.
Oh, geez.
How do you as a teacher set those parameters for us to stop those cycles? Like what would you do or recommend for people that are trying to create a better relationship or a better connection that have opposing views like that?
I think a practice of free-form writing is really helpful, kind of from a practical sense of nothing wow, but giving yourself an opportunity to give voice to those thoughts, whether it's sort of toxic thoughts about your partner, or, somebody in your life that really, you feel like betrayed you or did something wrong, is really like helping to release the energy and process it. And so I think through that process, which is really just not edited, just completely free, just scribbling, writing, fuck you, you motherfucker, like letting this stuff have a voice, and just getting it out of your system. And then you trash it, you burn it. And it's like a daily practice is very powerful. And it's like, you just allow yourself to say all the stuff you'd like never say.
Right.
So that is helpful. And I think as like in relationship, like if you and I were in a conversation and you were just like going down the toxic hole, I just, I think that the opportunity to just pause and just take a deep breath and just be like, hey, I really hear how much this is, affecting you right now. And I want you to know I'm here for you. And like, putting it back on that person to inquire, like, is this serving? Is this really serving you right now? Because for me, like, I would prefer if we talk about what we can do, and I'm happy to have that conversation with you. But, if this is something you really just need to vent, I'd be like, here's a notebook, like go do some freeform writing, or go out somewhere where you can scream and yell and just release, so that toxic, like yucky energy isn't coming like onto me as your friend. Like venting is really important as a way of moving energy.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you have those friends that you're like, listen, I just have to like let this out. But most people aren't aware of that. They're just like, they're venting, and they're not just aware that like, okay, I'm just going to release this and then I'm going to like go on. Mm-hmm. They're just like stuck in that story.
Yeah. Or they're going to vent it on Facebook and create even more of a downward spiral. Side note.
Yeah. It's like a tornado, just like gathering speed, and you're like getting all your allies. I think the work of Byron Katie is like one of the most profound things, where she goes like, who would you be without your story? And you have to go through those 4 steps of inquiry, and you always have to turn it back on yourself. So you start to get to this point where you're like, okay, I'm gonna let that go, like really let it go, not just say it, but like. There's a process that has to happen. I think for most of us, you can't just be like, oh, I'm going to let that go, because it's got you, like you're hooked, you're righteous, your ego is like just totally engaged. And so I think as a teacher, as you would know, it's like creating space and holding that space to say, okay, what kind of choice are we going to make right now? And being really aware of like, you have a choice. I think that victimization comes into play when people just get stuck and feel like, oh, I have no choice. Like he did this to me and now I have to do this. And it's like, that's not a creative response. It's like a lower level of consciousness kind of feeling, where you're just kind of like stuck and victimized. But I think it's pervasive in our culture, and I've been there, and I recognize it more now. And I try to reframe things, like reframe the beliefs, like pull it apart, like investigate like a cadaver, and look at it and go, what's this thing? What's this belief? And how's this making me feel? And what happens if I don't believe this anymore? Mm-hmm. And can I let that go? And can I look at things differently? Is there a way to look at this differently? And you just like look for any creative response. And sometimes you find one that's like, oh, actually I can go with that. I could see that he actually didn't mean to do that, that he was just not aware, and I can, have some compassion. And actually I could see that from his point of view, he wasn't trying to, fuck me over. So
yeah.
I don't know.
But that's a very enlightened, aware approach that I feel like, obviously, even just talking to you, you can tell that this has been a long process, and it's a practice for you that's taken a long period of time. It didn't just happen overnight. And so can you speak to that a little bit? Because I often get people emailing or sending messages, questions about wanting to learn to reframe negative thinking, or learning to reframe sort of a negative way of being, but they want a quick fix. It's like, oh, what are top 5 steps I can do to change this today? And I often feel like, and this ties back into having a teacher and having a practice, and it being over a long period of time without interruption, like the Yoga Sutras say. Mm-hmm. It's that process where, people are going to be more apt to do the, 7-day detox cleanse, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to take a year and eat really healthy so that the insides of my body can get really clean. Yeah. And we gravitate towards the quick, but I feel like the more we bring this conversation around things taking time, and us cultivating more patience, and being okay with things taking a year, 2 years, as opposed to, oh, this needs to happen in a month or in 3 weeks. So can you speak to that a little bit? I don't know that I framed a question, but I think you got the gist.
Well, yeah, I mean, what was coming forward for me is a quote that Rod shared through one of his posts, and it's basically like, there's the pain of discipline, or there's the pain of regret. There's only 2 types of pain. And so often we choose that pain without even knowing we're choosing. Again, it's like when you do become more aware, you realize that you have a choice in every situation. But I think most of us in general in the culture are not at that place where they have an awareness of choice. But it's like, if I don't do the daily practice and I do eat a bunch of crap, like, I'm making a choice, and then I have the feeling or the pain of regret. And then the other pain is like, am I going to get up at 6:30 instead of 7 and do this, half hour of writing that I committed to, and do this practice of inquiry into, what I'm doing today and why I'm doing it and how I'm going to show up, and intention setting and gratitude practices and all these things. That's a discipline, and that's painful too. It's like, I often want to stay in bed, like I do a lot of times too. So it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's like, I think we're really, really delusional. I think we're so out of touch with reality as a species. And I can just speak for myself. It's like, yeah, I want a quick fix. I want a pill. I want to go to therapy like one time and feel better. I don't want to go for like a year, but, and it's like, I'm pissed if I like paid $200 or $300 and like I didn't get anything out of that session. I'm like, oh, that was lame. Like I'm like that.
Oh yeah.
And I hate, and I think that's actually, I don't want to use that word because like I don't want to exude hate.
Sure.
The founder of Lead with Love. Let's take that little soundbite. I hate it. Like, I really think it's sad the way our culture and our media has created this like little soundbite culture. Which I totally get, because I never even sit and watch a full video or anything. But it's like, let's do these 5 steps. And to be honest, like, those 5 steps are game changers, but you have to do them every single day. Like, when you have to say, okay, what are you going to do to move through your fear? Or what are you going to do to be able to reframe issues? It's like, it's actually not that hard. It's like that pain of discipline, I think, is the crux. And, Rod has told me this too. It's like, when he gave me my mantra, he's like, yeah, do this every day. And I'm like, okay. And I did for a while, and then I didn't for a long time. And then I just felt different. And it's not like it has to be his practice or his mantra, but it was like, there's a practice there that keeps you in a certain state of equanimity and peace, no matter what's going on out in the world. And you actually have to do it. I think we're lazy. Like we're lazy and we're overwhelmed and everybody's working so hard and they don't have any time to just like be and relax and let creativity and flow be part of their life. It's like we're so overproductive and over like intellectual. And, that's why I love the physical practice of yoga. And I really am interested in getting involved in like a dancing kind of practice where I just get to be like free flowing. It's just rare.
Yeah. Oh, I love that because I just do, because I agree with it. Like, I totally agree with it. I also want to ask you about the summit that's coming up in October. I want to be respectful of your time, and I just feel like we can have a conversation about all of these things for hours. But there is an event happening, Lead with Love Summit's happening October 25th through the 28th at the Aspen Meadows Resort in Aspen, Colorado. And I will be there, and I'm really excited about it. But can you tell us a little bit more about the event and kind of what spawned its beginnings?
Yeah, it's interesting because Lead with Love like was this impulse that literally like jumped out of my heart in this time of life 3 years ago that I was in a really, really challenging place. I was not happy in my marriage. I had struggled for years with infertility and trying to have a child and just felt really low in like who I am and what I'm doing in the world and felt very trapped and victimized. And that's like the precursor of like, God, I'm in the dumps. And it was at the time I was in USM and I was doing all these practices and it was really challenging. Like doing this kind of work isn't like fun a lot of the time. It's like, oh yeah, totally. It's like really terrible a lot of the time. It's like so uncomfortable. Like, ugh. I felt so uncomfortable for like several years, like yeah. I would say, because I knew I wasn't in the space I wanted to be in, but like I couldn't get out of it. I was so stuck in the story of my head and being victimized by the circumstances. And interestingly, I was so inspired by Ron and Mary Hulnick and the curriculum that they had created through the university in spiritual psychology. And similarly, I had been super inspired by Off the Mat Into the World earlier, like 2010. When I went through their leadership training, it really helped me start the yoga society here and get connected to community and have like a sense of purpose and meaning. And so like when I was turning 40 in 2016, I had this feeling like I wanted to give back. I wanted to share some of the things that had really touched my life. And even though I was in this like kind of shithole space in my mind, like kind of toxic, like you probably wouldn't have known it, in the sense it's like how life is where you're like doing that inside, outside. I was like traveling the world and like having a blast on Instagram, but like, really I was like suffering a lot.
Right. Like most of us.
Yeah. And I mean, the impulse I think though was very pure. And I think that's why it's lasted, Lead with Love, because I said, you know what, if there's one thing I want to do to celebrate my life, it's just to acknowledge the teachers who have helped me along the way, who have been giving me some tools that have been helping me when I've been having a really hard time. And so the event was a celebration. It was my 40th birthday, but it was like a 4-day festival. So that's like, I wasn't feeling that bad that I couldn't like throw together like a 4-day party for my 40th. But I brought Ron and Mary, and I wanted to put spiritual psychology and yoga together. It's like it was these things that hadn't really been put together before that I knew of. Because the spiritual psychology, you would literally sit for 8 hours, 10 hours a day in these classrooms and your body would like wilt and want to die. But you were like so emotionally like moving through this stuff. And then yoga, of course, it's like it was kind of still newer that there was like a psychological component where you could really like work through some stuff in the yoga practice because it naturally brings things up when you move your body like that.
Yeah.
I would say Ashley Turner, who we've hosted a few times, is kind of a pioneer in putting that yoga psychology together. And I love her work and I think she's amazing. And I brought Sean Korn and Suzanne Sterling and Hala Corey the first year from Off the Mat. And I brought Ron and Mary Hulnick. And then I am friends with Goldie Hawn, who's just one of my, like just a light in my life. And she offered to come and speak. And then, kind of filling in around that just with friends and inspirational people, we put this thing together. And it was meant to be like a one-time, just full on, just love fest of like celebration. And something occurred there that was just so incredible, like the transformation of people's lives really within this 4-day period of going into this space, this kind of healing sanctuary that we created in this beautiful campus in Aspen. And the work that we were doing together and the way people showed up and the connections that were made, it was so much different than like a Wanderlust yoga journal type thing that I'd been to before. It was very intimate. We were all in the same room for these 4 days and all this programming. People just were very brave in showing up and doing this psychological work, which I think scares a lot of people to do that. But, it's so freeing. So we decided to do it again. And we did it last year. We had Deepak Chopra come and Marianne Williamson and just like, amazing headlining people that just were attracted to what we were up to. And that was actually, a huge success, but it stressed our system. Like I was saying, we were just like so stressed and we were like running this like love event. So year 3 this year, it's like, we're blending these things. We're like, we don't want to be as big as we were last year. We actually want to, be more intimate, be more connected. And we shifted the focus from, yoga as the lead to more of a leadership summit, because it's just, my journey is so much about learning, what does it mean to lead with love? Like, what is that? Like, how do you do it, practically speaking? And I want to share what I've been learning, and I want to, really curate the best leaders out there to come together and share with people like you and me and people who are entrepreneurial and creative and want to change the world, and then also want to take care of ourselves and find that balance. So I'm super excited about what's happening this year, in that it's reflecting kind of this growth of us as a new company, of trying to understand how to be with each other and how to add value in the world, and be sustainable in a sense, and not just have everything be funded by me, and that felt depleting. So learning systems of like, how do you put a budget together and how do you stick to that, and all the fun stuff.
Yeah. Very excited. Very, like, it's so funny that you say, I'm like, you were stressed out for the love of it. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's so typical. It's funny. I'm really excited. I'm definitely going to be there, and I'm pretty sure Tori's coming too. So, we're really excited. I know you have some great people that are presenting. John Mackey, from Whole Foods, the CEO, and Rod's going to be there, and Rudolph Tanzi from Harvard. He's a neurology professor, right? I think he's going to be there. Suzanne Sterling, who taught a module for my 300-hour at YogaWorks when I did it years ago, which is awesome. I'm really excited to see her. There's some really great people that are going to be there, and I'm really excited. And I think that, events like these are so important, not only to just be able to create a forum for like-minded individuals to feel the support of their community, but to also allow that ripple effect to go out into the world, because I feel like they're so powerful. And the having so many people in a place like this, especially in a beautiful healing place like Aspen, it's so beyond powerful. It creates such a huge impact, I think. So I'm excited. I'm really excited.
I appreciate it. I'm excited too. And I'm excited for you to, host something where we talk about how to do a podcast, because I really do think that these type of things can help people on the path. Like all the questions you were asking is just, listening and tuning in, whether you're walking or driving, and just hearing what other people are doing, and knowing we're all, in some ways struggling and just trying our best, and then what's working for us. And, I don't think you'd ever, hear anything different from somebody that's legit about what it takes to be a happy and healthy. It's not the 5 steps, and it's not the quick fix. It's really about creating that sense of stability in your life through a daily routine, and then, surrounding yourself with like-minded and positive people that you can mirror back and say, listen, I don't want to be in this conversation with you right now. I feel like this is really a drain. Why don't we choose, something different? And then, you start to build relationships and the tribe of people that you can work with and create with. And then life is awesome. It's a ton of fun, and it's not always easy still, but you're going through it with a group of people that are willing to be honest and look at themselves. And I think for me, that's the most important thing.
Yes. Oh, well, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for being on, Gina. It really means the world, not only all the work you do, but what an incredible human being you are. Thank you for all the hard work that you do to create organizations like this that are really raising our consciousness and our vibration and our ability to love more. And I'm just so honored to be in that group and in that space with you and part of your community. So thank you for that.
Awesome. Thank you, Rosie.
So for the people listening that are wanting to go to this epic event with us, Gina has created a very special gift for you listeners, right, Gina?
Yes, we decided to make a code because Rosie is rad. That's rad love, RADLOVE. And if you plug that in, you get $100 off the ticket. And, I think this event is an incredible deal, even though it's not like, it's not a small investment. It's $950, but the event costs us more than that to put on. And I just, we underwrite it and we do subsidize it to some extent. We do offer scholarships as well, but we do need people that are motivated and inspired by this message, Lead with Love, to show up. And so if any part of this podcast, touched you, or you feel like, these are my people, I want to be there, then go on our website, www.ileadwithlove.org, and you can, click on the summit and, buy a ticket.
Yeah, it'll take you there. So for everybody listening, we will put all of those links as well as the code on the show notes. So if you click on the show notes, wherever you're listening, if it's on Spotify or iTunes or Stitcher, you should have all the links available there. I'll also put Gina's website on there, and be sure to tag us on Instagram to let us know what you thought about this episode. We love you all. Thank you all so much. Gina, you're the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other place we can tell people to go if they want to contact you?
Well, I think our Instagram is rad, R-A-D, rad. It's at I Lead with Love. And then we have a hashtag I Lead with Love. And partially we couldn't get the URL Lead with Love because somebody already had it, even though they weren't using it. What? And so we chose I Lead with Love and loved kind of that affirmative statement so that our community is making that affirmation every day with every post. So would love for you guys to check it out and post some things and start joining that community. And, talking about accountability too, we are going to be doing some Facebook Lives, maybe every day. We haven't decided, but at least 3 days a week, where we will be broadcasting our morning practice from 7:30 to 8 Mountain Time, just kind of running through what that practice might look like for you, and something that you can join in, because accountability is so huge, and having people to walk the path with, so that when you wake up in the morning, you might need a little help. And so you just tune in, and we'll be just going through a practice of movement, meditation, and journaling. So I'll send you some of that once we get the links up.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I do have a final question for you.
Sure.
So I created this forum as a way to have a place for people to go to get inspired and to feel connected. And so the idea is that we are all radically loved by Source, God, baby Krishna, baby Buddha, whatever, baby Jesus, whatever, or your dog, whatever, any higher power of your understanding. The idea is the universe works for us and not against us. So the final two questions for you are: how do you feel radically loved, and what do you radically love?
Ooh, I love this question only because I recently got a puppy, and I'm having like an insane love affair with Ninja. Her name's actually Love Ninja.
Oh, I love it.
It says Love Ninja of Red Mountain. And so I'm having this insane love affair, and I radically love this animal, like, so much. And it's because I needed, like I said about wanting to have a child, it was like I just needed to be able to channel my love into something that would receive it to the extent I could. And I think a lot of people would receive it if they wanted it, but I wasn't finding the right fit. So I radically love my puppy and my husband and my community. But that's been so fun and joyful. And then, did you say, how do I feel?
Radically loved, yeah.
It's the universe. It's like when I sit and when I give myself that space, I have no question that we are love, and that is the answer. It's like it's like it's always there, and I just forget to tune in a lot of times. But whenever I do, I feel the love of this incredible source.
Oh, Gina, you're the best. Thank you so much. That was so awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This podcast is brought to you by our very special sponsor, Ayurveda. So Ayurveda is the sister science to yoga. Ayurveda relies on the intelligence of Mother Nature and our own body's ability to heal. Most of you know that as a health coach and a nutritionist, I have spent most of my career always trying to find more natural and holistic modalities. I have an autoimmune disease, so this makes it a little bit more challenging, but it's manageable nonetheless so long as my body is in full balance. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking to my dear friend and fellow podcaster, Sahara Rose, and I was telling her I was having all of these issues with my stomach, my digestion, and she recommended this brand called Ayurveda. So I did my due diligence and I researched them, and I found that this company has really created an incredible brand of supplements to support everything that we love about our bodies and our body's natural ability to heal, but also using the tools of Ayurveda. So they use this as their foundation to everything that they do. As with everything, I'm always a bit dubious because I know there's not a one-fix-all supplement or brand, but I tried it. I used both the joints supplement and the digestion, and I'll tell you, after using it for about a month, I noticed such a huge difference. They are just such an incredible company, and I was able to chat with them and talk to them not only about the high quality of their product, but the high quality of their brand and their company and what they're trying to do. I quickly found that these people are my people, and all we're trying to do is create a ripple effect in the world so that we can continue to impact people's lives and create better health, deeper connections, and just overall healthy living. I'm so excited to not only partner with them, but to have them share a special code for all of the listeners. Go to Ayurveda.com and type in Rosie, that's ROSIE, at checkout to get a special discount on all of their products. Do you want to go on an epic yoga adventure? I do. In fact, I do all the time. When do I not want to go on an epic yoga adventure? And this fall, in an attempt to see the Northern Lights, we will go to Iceland into a journey through the chakras. It's going to be fun. If you're curious, you can email me at rosie@radicallyloved.com or go to the show notes and click the links to each of the retreats, or you can go to radicallyloved.com. See you soon. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I am so excited to continue to do this. Please share this with your friends. Email us, message us on Instagram at Rosie Acosta or on Twitter at Rosie Acosta. Subscribe on iTunes, write a review. We love doing this, so please help us continue to keep this podcast going. Thanks for listening.